as you can see, we are definitely not on a 600, and as you've probably noticed from the Philo's Garage badge on this bike, there's going to be a bit of a story behind this one. So, being a challenge set, I'll just go briefly into it. We are going to be trying to basically build and do a road trip on some 125's with a budget set of £750. Turned out that's really difficult, and it's not something you can actually easily do. So basically I thought it's going to be a little idea, because the weather, as you can see, is starting to brighten up. Lockdown restrictions are being eased. You can actually now go out for recreational purposes, and it's pretty much revealed that 125's are a bit of a minefield. So I decided to do a little handy guide to your first motorcycle 125's and all the things that go with them. Now, it used to be pretty straightforward. It used to be that when you were 17, in the days that I did my test, I could do my compulsory basic training, which I could either do on a rental bike or my own. And after that, you were free to ride on L plates, took your test, you had a full licence. So there was two types of 125 buyer. You either bought an absolutely cheap as chips piece of crap and rode it for 2 or 3 months, sold it, bought a big bike. That's the route I went. I bought a CB125RS, which even then was a rare bike. The other option was you saved up the paper round, your job at McDonald's, whatever you used to do, and you could walk into a dealer and buy yourself a new bike. Now, in those days, there was only choices for 2 types of bike. You could have a Japanese bike, or you could have an Italian bike. That was pretty much, give or take, what you had as options. Now, the Italian bikes were gorgeous. Things like the Kajifa Mita and the Aprilia AF1 had, the Aprilia at one point even had a single-sided swing arm, but you got upside-down forks, 2-stroke high-powered engines when they were de-restricted properly. Now, that's a different matter. You would have, massive disc brakes. The Kajiva had a 7-speed gearbox. These were real, tangible sports bikes, but they were expensive. I mean, even going back to the early 90s, these things were £3,000. I mean, that's, I'm not sure exactly what that is in modern money, but it's probably got to be £5,500–6,000. Or you could buy more mundane things like CG125, CB125, GSX125, and of course there was some Japanese 2-stroke sports bikes like RG125, TZR125, NS125, NSR125, repeat ad nauseum, Kawasaki, I forget what the 2-stroke 125 was, but it was like a little miniature GPZ. Why has that left my brain? AR125, there you go. Now, the 2-strokes obviously could be de-restricted, and that meant you did have a bike that could just about do 100 miles an hour and was actually viable. And of course, the market for de-restricted 125's was quite strong, because obviously the dealer will only de-restrict your bike when you show them your full licence. So that was a bit different, and that's what we had as 125's then. So fast forward now, that's 2021. I don't know the intricacies of the learner laws now, but I know it's a lot harder, and a lot of people are stuck with 125's for a lot longer. But the question is, what do you do? Do you buy a main brand GSXR 125, CBR 125, etc.? Do you buy a slightly less main brand Reiju or KTM, something like that? Or do you buy a Chinese new bike? Or do you buy a second-hand CBR 125? Does the increased quality of the second-hand Japanese bike override the abuse that learners have given it? Well, that's where our little challenge came in handy, because, of course, what we had was a budget that wouldn't allow us to buy a really good used 125, or wouldn't allow us to buy anything new. So we all took different routes. This Lexmoto here that I'm on was bought very, very cheaply and rebuilt. I won't go into lots of detail, but here's a little A-Team style montage of the build. So here we go, this is the beast. We have got the most horrendous rust
totally seized chain and sprockets. Tyres are crap. Everything's crap. The shock's knackered. Battery's knackered. The fuel tank is gross and full of things that are no longer really what you'd call petrol. And, well, that's not going to work, is it? And just everything is absolutely grotesque. And some lovely roofing bolts holding the trim on around the ignition lock. The reservoir was so bad, I just put my finger straight through it. So there's lots of parts that are just going to go off and go straight in the bin. So first things first, total nut and bolt rebuild. Let's get on with it. Right, so this is the XTRS 125. It's a little Lexmoto made in China, and I've got to say the quality of these has come on leaps and bounds. They've got upside down forks. I mean, they're not the highest quality in the world, but they do the job. Decent headlights, disc brakes both ends. Now that little doohickey there is apparently an ABS kind of deal, but it is what it is. And this one has got an aftermarket paint job. It's been painted in Rover Night Fire Red, but it's got stainless steel exhaust and the world's most comical, crappy, actually not crappy because it's so cheap, value for money, knock off a Krapovich exhaust. Now the way they do that is hilarious, because they don't actually claim it's an Krapovich exhaust can in the advert. It's just a universal can. The Lextech pipe is just a stainless steel pipe. You can either buy their muffler for it, or you can buy a universal one. So I got the universal one. It was £30 from eBay, and in the photos they never mention a Krapovich. So what they do, they supply an unbranded fake carbon fibre can, but it looks absolutely fine. It's actually fairly decently finished and sounds fine. But what they do is supply in a little packet marked free gift and a Krapovich badge, which is up to you if you put it on. They never said it was a Krapovich pipe. So quite an interesting way of getting around copyright laws. Not convinced it's completely legal, but it's less blatant than some copies. But yeah, great little 125, really good fun to ride, and not a bad place to start looking. If you can find a nice unabused one, go for it.
Another friend went on the route of buying something that was non-running but didn't need a lot of work, put that back on the road. And our third contestant, for want of a better term, bought something premium that in theory only needed a little work. So what happened? Well, turns out there were no cheap routes. We all blew the budget, some by a little, me by a lot. But it brought to light the absolute carnage most learners wreak on their bikes. All three bikes were hideously bodged. Incorrect carburetors held on a Jubilee clip. So the AJS, which our friend Owen's got, is a twin-cylinder bike which had had one carburetor bodged on with home plumbing parts. Needless to say, that didn't work. The Sax, which is again what we're terming as the Western bike, that was the one that was most expensive to start with. That was held together with roofing screws and had an aerosol paint job. That was just a mess. Nothing fitted, nothing lined up, everything was bent, every fastener was wrong. And this had been run for a couple of years and then left under a tree for 5 years. This is only a 2012 bike, it's only 9 years old. Yet it was so derelict, it was the only way this would have had any future would have been to take it completely apart, do what I've done with it, and turn it into a basically new bike. The other problem is Japanese don't make 125's anymore. Are Chinese bikes crap, and are Japanese bikes awesome? The reality is, there are no Japanese 125s. Even the most expensive one I can see at a glance, the GSXR 125, which is £4,300, is made in Indonesia. CBR 125s, things like that, are made in Thailand. The Grom is made in Thailand, and there are no Japanese ones. So the gulf between China and Thailand in terms of worker ethic and things like that is not huge. But the big variable comes not from the manufacturer, but actually from the company, that are building it. So as long as the quality control's there, it doesn't matter if it's Chinese, Thai, whatever, they're going to be perfectly okay. This Lexmoto feels tight, it's going plenty well enough. I mean, I'm not on full throttle, not that full throttle does much, but I'm buzzing along here at, well, it's saying 80, but I think about 65. I'm not holding anyone up. Perfectly safe here, the bike's smooth enough, it's stable. But of course, this has been effectively hand-built in my garage. The Lexmotos seem to be quite a good general choice. So, the quality is not bad, but not excellent, but not bad. And they ride well. It's not short on power. I don't feel like I'm struggling on this road. As you can see, I'm perfectly capable of cornering, and it's not trying to kick me off. It's fine. What I did find when I took it apart was the utter devastation from a previous few owners. It's had a couple of owners, not many. It's done no mileage, and the MOT history backs that up because it's abandoned very early in its life. But even a Honda, that is not as fine as that sign said, even a Honda subject to this abuse is going to have suffered enormously. I don't believe the difference in the quality accounts for the abuse levied upon it after 4 or 5 years. So I would suggest, if you're going to be keeping your 125 for 3 or 4 years, as you probably are, it's got to the point where the good Chinese brands, like Lexmoto, Sim, so forth, Sinis, are now offering a product that the fact that it's new and out of the box and not abused is actually better than a second-hand abused Japanese bike for the same money. You can buy the latest version of this bike, the Lexmoto, I think it's the LXR or something like that, LXTR, and it's about £2,500. It's got dual disc brakes, it's got a good chassis, dynamically it's a great bike, and Lexmoto are now building up a position in the marketplace where the bikes do have some residual value. So buy it on finance, it's not going to cost you a fortune, even if the interest rate's hideous, which it will be because it's probably your first credit agreement. But look after it, change your oil, lube the chain, and I say that because there's no evidence this bike had ever had its chain lubricated in 5,000 miles. But get the new one and look after it. You'll still get a lot of your money back. The depreciation of the Japanese bike, even a second-hand one, will have cost you just as much, but you have the comfort of knowing you haven't had some complete idiots maintaining the bike, or even not maintaining the bike. So the only exceptions I make to that rule is the Honda Grom, because resale is so strong on those, and they are hilarious. I do wonder if sports 125s are a bit silly, because they're all have no trousers. But look after your 125, it will look after you. As you can see, I have no trouble buzzing along there. It's doing 100 miles per gallon. But the abuse that we found going through these bikes was just beyond shocking. So, yeah, I would personally rather buy a slightly weaker, unabused bike than a stronger abused one. But anyway, that's a little bit of a fairly mindless rant. Amble through the world of 125s. If you found this useful, if you like these videos, hit the like and subscribe button. We're going to be bringing all sorts of stuff coming up. We're going to get the drag bike back on the dynos soon, start setting the nitrous up, so we're hoping to see some slightly bigger numbers out of it. We've made some changes to the electronics which should allow that to happen. The CPR is going to be coming out of hibernation in the next couple of weeks. and if this weather continues, we'll have lots coming up. So hit that like and subscribe button. See you soon in another video.